It's Monday, April 26. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Registration for COVID-19 vaccination opened on Friday for persons 60 years and older. This includes healthcare workers and staff members of the JCF, JDF, Jamaica Fire Brigade, PICA, Jamaica Customs, and the Department of Correctional Services. Members of the public who fall in any of these cohorts can utilize two methods for registering for the vaccine. Registration may be done using the online portal on the ministry's website at www.moh.gov.jm or call the National Vaccination Hotline at 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. In the meantime, the Health and Wellness Ministry wishes to remind persons who have taken their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine that they are not fully protected until they have received both dosage of the vaccine. With this in mind, persons are being reminded to continue to observe all the infection prevention and control measures, wearing of masks, maintaining physical distance of 6 feet or more, and frequently washing hands with soap and water or using hand sanitizers. The provisions under the disaster risk management orders are also to be adhered to. As the region celebrates Vaccination Week, the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, notes a decline in immunization due to interruptions in health services because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The organization is calling on countries to step up their immunization programs. Here's more in this story. PAHO says reduction in immunization resulted in hundreds of thousands of children missing vaccinations last year. The organization says COVID-19 restrictions on movement contributed to fewer vaccinations. In addition, many people were reluctant to go to health facilities to request vaccinations for fear of COVID-19 transmission. Speaking Monday at the launch of Vaccination Week, Director of PAHO, Dr. Carissa Etienne, cautioned that with so many children missing their immunization dates, the world could see a breakout of viruses like measles, mumps, and rubella.
So while we work to expand COVID-19 vaccine coverage across the Americas, we must also do everything that we can to stop the spread of other vaccine-preventable diseases. PAHO Revolving Fund delivered more than 27 million doses of influenza vaccines to our region last year, and millions more vaccines to protect children with routine immunizations. This year, we have delivered more than 4.2 million doses of COVID vaccines to more than 29 countries in our region, and we're just getting started.
She says decades of successful vaccination has prepared the region to manage the COVID-19 vaccination process, but the pandemic has brought new challenges.
The Americas region has a long-standing and exemplary tradition as vaccine champions, having succeeded in eliminating polio, measles, and rubella. But while we know what it takes to bring vaccines to people across our region, COVID-19 has caused significant disruptions to immunization programs in the countries of this region. Our health systems are stretched, and in many places it has been difficult to access essential services like vaccinations.
Vaccine inequity was also listed as a hindrance.
At least 700 million people in our region will need to be protected, and until they are, we will all remain at risk. The current global system is hardwired for inequity, where regardless of public health needs, wealthy countries are favored over poorer ones.
Dr. Etienne says PAHO will stand with the region to address this gap and help governments immunize the entire population. The Caribbean Policy Research Institute, CAPRI, says the shift from face-to-face learning to online is creating difficulties for students. CAPRI says a recent study called insult to injury, the impact of COVID-19 on vulnerable communities in the Caribbean shows that some children had difficulty learning from home, showing a range from a high of 43% in Jamaica to a low of 11% in Trinidad and Tobago. CAPRI says respondents noted challenges such as having no access to computer or tablet for online learning. The Research Institute explains that the situation is even more challenging for younger children as they are at a less mature stage of their intellectual development and they are more dependent on adult guidance in their learning process. The study examines the socio-economic impacts of COVID-19 on vulnerable groups in Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago. The government has made another definitive move towards the winding up of the Tobacco Industry Control Authority. On Friday, the Senate passed the Tobacco Industry Regulations Validation and Indemnity Repeal Act 2021.
Those in favor? Against?
The legislation affords confirmation of actions being taken to dissolve the Tobacco Industry Control Authority, including the divestment of assets, entering into contracts, and the payment of redundancies to officers. Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Leslie Campbell, piloted the bill.
The decision of the Cabinet is aligned to the Government of Jamaica's Public Sector Master Rationalization Plan, which proposes a reduction of over 190 public bodies, comprising companies, agencies, and statutory bodies, as a critical feature of transforming the public sector. This was based on duplication or inappropriate delivery of functions and the existence of entities that had achieved their mandates and needed to be closed.
Minister Campbell says the move is guided by the need for a leaner, more efficient and coherent grouping of public bodies, and the Tobacco Authority is one such entity. He explains, with the decision of Cabinet dated November 21, 1983, the operation of the Tobacco Industry Control Authority has ceased, but the Act continues to be enforced.
The bill therefore provides for a validation and confirmation of all acts in relation to the winding up of the Tobacco Industry Control Authority, including the divestment of assets, entering into of contracts, and the payment of redundancy to officers and servants done in good faith and inadvertent as to the absence of statutory authority. And B, indemnification of persons against liability arising out of their carrying out of such acts. And C, the repeal of the Tobacco Industry Regulation Act.
Opposition Senator Donna Scott Mutley, in supporting the bill, suggested that the Department of Legal Reform, in addition to revising the laws, needs to go through all the legislation to determine which ones should be repealed.
This particular one has been in existence from 1983, and it is really a travesty that it is only now today that we're dealing with it. And, Mr. President, you would know that there are numerous laws on the books now which need to be treated with similarly. They need to be repealed. They are outdated and inefficient and ineffective in every material particular. So the Department of Legal Reform, in addition to revising the laws, needs simply to go through all the legislation and determine which one comes here for appeal.
The local fisheries sector may have lost an estimated $23.1 million during 2020 owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. Fisherfolk from the Port Morant fishing village in St. Thomas are complaining of increased challenges. Our news team visited the village.
To the fishing around right now, it changed. Everything changed. No fishing are going right now. So we are suffering. And we need some help. We need a lot of help. The beach within the light, the gas rates, every week the gas rates, we can't support the fishing no more. I have 3 kids that go to school, and the fishermen live off of, I don't do no more work beside fishing. And right now, it come like nothing not going for me. I have a daughter right now go to college, and the fishing have to use a help her to go to college. And it can't work. Stiff, with a lot of problems. So I like the minister to help us solve the problem. We have a lot of problems. Yeah. Fish pot, net line. A lot of things going on. So we need the beach more rectified. We don't like the ministry really come and look at the beach for us, see what we can do for it. Because the beach, we want a toilet on the beach, a public convenient. We need light on the beach, because we have a lot of engineers. We sleep and watch our engine at night time. Watch with net, watch with fish pot. Not done for yourself. So everybody get frustrated. Worse the COVID coming out, worse.
I'm one of the few fishermen that are out here suffering right now. We are battering hard because every month, every stock of material come for us, it gone higher and higher, and we can't raise the fish, and we're not catching the fish. Now we have a difficult problem on the beach. The beach needs fix up. The minister promised to come out to do a thing, nothing done. We are lose the engine. Nights up and nights when the man then come to take your engine, they come on the beach and a fire shot and stuff like that. So we need help. We need help from the government. Just as how we look towards the government need to look towards us the same way. If it can no better can done, well, this is cheaper pack up fishing. So
Last November, Agriculture and Fisheries Minister Floyd Green announced in Parliament $121 million in production incentives for fishers and fish farmers. Mr. Green said that approximately 4,740 licensed fishers across 137 fishing communities would benefit from grants in the form of vouchers for a total value of $67 million. Jamaica has been trying to diversify its export offerings. To that end, there has been a significant increase in the production and export of non-traditional crops and fishery offerings. It has been estimated that the fisheries sector employs directly and indirectly some 200,000 people, or roughly 7% of the population. The spiny lobster fishery is an important source of income and employment. Jamaica's spiny lobster is a much sought-after delicacy by some locals as well as tourists. We have more in this report from Morant Samuels.
Once seen as food for the poor or bait for other fisheries, lobster has become a much sought-after luxury seafood item. 6 species of lobsters are found in Jamaican water. Only 2, including the spiny lobster, are commercially viable. Large concentrations of spiny lobsters are found on the Pedro banks. When caught, lobster is exported in various ways. It can be live, frozen, dried, salted, or in brine. The delicacy is exported mainly to the United States, Canada, Panama, the Cayman Islands, and more recently Dubai and China. In 2018, Jamaica exported more than 23,000 kilograms of live spiny lobster to China. In 2019, that figure grew to 28,000 kilograms. The projections for the lobster industry at the start of 2020 was extremely bright. Instead, the COVID-19 pandemic dimmed the light and sent the lobster export industry reeling. COVID-19 triggered strict border control measures which limited access to the once profitable export markets. The closing of the Chinese market saw a significant reduction in the harvesting of lobster. It also meant a fall-off in local sales as many hotels and restaurants scaled back operations. Shrinking sales also meant a dropping price for lobster. The annual closed season for spiny lobsters is April 1 and ends on June 30. Regulations governing the closed season for spiny lobsters are now in effect. The regulations stipulate that any person or entity that is storing or wishes to sell or export spiny lobsters or lobster parts or products during the closed season must notify the licensing authority of the Fisheries Division of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. In addition, no spiny lobsters are to be held live during the closed season in any holding device. Fishing for spiny lobsters during the closed season is illegal. However, spiny lobsters unintentionally captured in fishing gear must be returned to sea immediately. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Here is a summary of some of the latest financial market details. Gabriel Thompson brings us the business report.
Jamaica is set to provide 1,000 micro, small and medium-sized enterprises MSMEs with a free e-commerce website and free hosting on May 16. Project 1000, a multi-million-dollar initiative, aims to enable businesses to foster digitalization during the coronavirus pandemic, surpassing geographical boundaries in marketing and profits. The websites being done through WeShops utilize simple drag-and-drop technology for the average person to place items on the website with a price and publish. Founder and Chief Executive Officer of WePay, Aldwin Wayne, says this is being done since the main target of the free functional websites is the small and medium-sized businesses, even for plumbers, hairdressers, retailers, and gardeners.
But I'm smiling because it's way more than that for us at WePay. I'm smiling because now I have 1,000 individuals, not the big corporations. I'm talking about individuals on the ground, micro businesses, having the ability to participate in the new gig economy that the world has gone forward with. And to see the Caribbean and Jamaica particularly joining that race brings a smile to my face.
WeShops is the Caribbean's first zero-code website application. Payments are processed directly to the entrepreneur's bank account via WePay. Open to all MSMEs. Interested participants can visit weshopscaribbean.com and register for a free website. Registrants will then be contacted by WePay with additional instructions of what they need to qualify to be a part of Project 1000. On the launch date, WePay will attempt to set a new world record in the Guinness Book of World Records for most users in a web development hangout. At the end of the launch event, all websites will be fully operational. WePay Jamaica, a subsidiary of WePay Holdings Group, a leading Caribbean fintech and payment solutions company, said it saw the need to foster digitalization through the launch of the government's e-commerce National Delivery Solution (ENDS) platform. The company was among the private sector partners involved in the platform's development. WePay CEO Aldwin Wayne said though it will be a tough pivot, ENDS has made it evident that Jamaica is ready and willing to go online. WePay Jamaica country manager Kibwe McGann believes such a venture will introduce and facilitate e-commerce to the small vendor, which could assist in the Caribbean's road to recovery and jump-start economies.
Many college students are now participating in what we call the gig economy. Many people now have side hustles. Many people are trying to make ends meet with 2 and 3 jobs, no pun intended. What if everyone was given a website? In fact, what if we gave away 1,000 e-commerce websites? All of a sudden, that 10% in terms of Caribbean e-commerce opportunities no longer looked so far-fetched.
Project 1000 is sponsored by First Global Bank Limited, MasterCard, Jamaica Promotions Corporation, and the Jamaica Observer. In Friday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 343 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 92 stocks, of which 43 advanced, 30 declined, and 19 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 13 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for Burrito Investments Limited, Caribbean Cream, and Carreras Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, 1834 Investments Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company. Trading firm were Blue Power Group Limited, Siboney Group Limited, and Dolphin Cove Limited. Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 19.6 million units, followed by Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with 3.7 million units, and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 3.7 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Friday, February 23 ended trading at $154.74. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $124.20. The pound sterling traded for $212.53, and the euro ended trading at $188.42. Oil fell on Monday on fears that surging COVID-19 cases in India will dent fuel demand in the world's third biggest oil importer, while the end of a force majeure on exports from a Libyan terminal and an expected supply increase from OPEC Plus added to pressure. India's new coronavirus infections hit a record peak for a fifth day on Monday as countries including Britain, Germany, and the United States pledged to send urgent medical aid to help battle the crisis overwhelming Indian hospitals. According to Reuters, consultancy FGE expects gasoline demand in India to drop by 100,000 barrels per day in April and by more than 170,000 BPD in May. India's total gasoline sales came to nearly 747,000 BPD in March. Brent crude futures dropped $1.02 to settle at $65.09 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 90 cents to $61.24 a barrel. Both benchmarks fell about 1% last week. And on that note, we close this Monday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
Regionally in the Bahamas, the Disaster Reconstruction Authority revealed that it still has quite a bit of work ahead in the cleaning up of the destruction left behind following Hurricane Dorian in 2019. We have more in this Our News report in the Bahamas.
Managing Director of the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, Catherine Smith, says according to the latest statistics, more than 3,000 homes are still in need of repairs.
According to the latest DRA statistics, there is a need to complete the repair of 3,735 homes between Abaco and Grand Bahama. There is 3.5 million cubic yards of collected debris that must be reduced and sorted. Marine cleanup has to take place as second homeowners return to the mainland of Abaco and the Keys. And while some debris has been removed from areas around the McLeanstown dock, work must continue on the marine front here in Grand Bahama as well, particularly the East Grand Bahama area.
The DRA is also dealing with a housing shortage on Abaco and Grand Bahama.
There is a severe housing shortage in Abaco, particularly for public offices and renters. On Grand Bahama, renters are having a tough time finding rental units that are also affordable. Critical infrastructure at the airport and hospital on Grand Bahama has to be replaced. Thankfully, the first phase of the RAN hospital work is completed, and I understand an opening imminent. In a sense, we have only begun to set the blank canvas for a more resilient reconstruction effort.
According to Smith, there is no quick fix to the disaster that Dorian has left behind.
We've estimated at our current resource level that sustainable development as a result of reconstruction could take several years.
Malaria is a disease that kills a child every 2 minutes. Ongoing transmission of malaria via mosquitoes in many parts of the world means that half of the global population is at risk of contracting the disease. But that risk is very low in Trinidad and Tobago, which has maintained a malaria-free status since 1965. Tarianne Brown-Campbell spoke to a specialist medical officer at the Insect Vector Control Division to find out more about malaria and filed this report.
In 2019, 229 million persons contracted malaria globally. This resulted in 409,000 deaths. Compare that to the number of cases reported in Trinidad and Tobago in 2020, a mere 7, and they were all categorized as imported.
An imported case is that a case that was primarily contracted outside the country. So that person came with the malaria into the country. They might not have had any symptoms, but it doesn't mean that they didn't have malaria. The incubation period for malaria could be as low as 14 days, and in some cases could be as high as over 3 months. So it depended on the type of malaria that you're dealing with.
Dr. Ibelami further explains how imported and indigenous cases differ.
When we use the word, because sometimes when you use the word imported and local, people think that that has to do with nationality. It's not so much of a nationality issue. When we had 40 cases, all the 40 were not people from Venezuela. You had a lot of Trinidadians, but some of those Trinidadians were people who went to Venezuela, who went to Guyana, who went to Africa, who went to India.
The specialist medical officer says what some of us may not realize is that Trinidad and Tobago has its own mild form of malaria.
Trinidad and Tobago we do have an indigenous form of malaria, but we don't have enough to remove our malaria-free status. That type of malaria is called Plasmodium malariae.
He adds that so far for 2021, there were 2 cases of malaria locally.
Malaria can be found in Trinidad, in the forested parts of Trinidad. However, we have not had malaria in the sense of saying we have 3 in 2007, 3 in 2008, 3 in 2009 in the same locality, and all that. So we've never had that.
This, he says, would be the only way we would lose our malaria-free status. Dr. Bellamy adds that the best defense against malaria and other mosquito-borne diseases like chikungunya and dengue is to keep our living area clean and to use mosquito netting to cover doors and windows. Terry Ann Brown Campbell, TTT News.
In sports, we open the innings with cricket. Regional Cricketing Authority, controlled body that is, Cricket West Indies, CWI, says it plans to aggressively continue rolling back debt and streamlining its financial practices in an ambitious bid to realize profits by 2023. According to an audited financial statement, CWI lost over $13 million in 2020. CWI Chief Executive Johnny Grave says it's critical that the board remained prudent in managing costs by adhering to initiatives already in place. He says the CWI has already managed to reduce borrowing, and while the COVID-19 pandemic continues to present unprecedented financial challenges, it was hoped that within the next 2.5 years, the organization could be in a sustainable position. And that's the news. Thanks so much for making it PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.